Can you hear that dog at all? Oh, it's just one dog. Hello Internet and welcome to the Sounds of Stadia post show number 17. You're joining myself, Chris, one of your hosts, alongside the techie teacher himself, Mr. Tom, of course, joining us. And below him, the man of many pixels, pixelated as ever, Mr. Richie, joining us.
Am I pixelated right now?
You could be.
No.
I mean, you are to some degree. It just depends on how close people are to you, right? That's how it works. If I got really close to your face,
pixels.
Yeah, people are made out of pixels, Chris. That's not how it works.
I mean, if you go close enough, right?
I mean, yes you do start getting to the atomic level, but
we're all the people of pixels. It's our society. And you're joining us for Post Show 17, where we are here to continue our Games of a Generation discussion. Again, wrapping out 2020, saying goodbye to PlayStation, Xbox, maybe not Nintendo Switch. I think that's going to hang around for a little bit as we welcome in next gen. And obviously, we couldn't discuss the current generation, or the last generation as it's now known, without delving into the world of Sony PlayStation, which we're all massive fans of. There's no denying that. But like we say often on our channel, we're here to play games, and we'll play them wherever we're the most happy.
Just to clarify, it's post show 18. I realised I didn't update the document.
No. Right, post show 17?
It is.
17. Cool, brilliant. Welcome to post show 18 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast post show. Remember, if you want to get the show a little bit early, just head over to patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia, where you'll get it a whole 5 days, 6 days earlier, depending on how quick the video renders, and you'll get that up to enjoy before the rest of the people who view it on free feed, such as YouTube. Actually, I say such as YouTube. It's only available on YouTube because it's a video-only post show that we do.
We're going public to YouTube.
That is true. But like I mentioned, we're here to discuss PlayStation, gentlemen. We've all got a long, varied history with arguably one of the biggest publishers, developers, console makers in the games industry. Personally, my all-out favourite. I've got a lot of nostalgia for this one. I grew up with them. And we're here to talk about the top 20 game exclusives on PlayStation. Next week, we will be covering third-party games, but all in all, bringing a generational conversation to an end. And we've got some stellar hits to cover off this week. So let's kick things off. In at number 20, Gran Turismo Sport. The kind of middle ground between Gran Turismo 7. I always do that. I've done that for years.
I was going to say Grand Theft Auto. That's a weird middle ground.
For years, GTA and GT, just take out that one letter, and it's threw me for a loop for well over a decade now. But yes, GT Sport, a non-numbered version of Gran Turismo. There are rumours the new Gran Turismo is coming out first half of next year, 2021. Nothing official, but there's been leaks and stuff around that. So maybe so. For me personally, Gran Turismo was one of those that I used to love back in the day when I was growing up, but I think we've mentioned it on a few podcast episodes before. As an adult, being able to drive, the kind of allure of a racing game, is faded for me in the last probably 5 to 6 years. How about you two? What's your histories with Gran Turismo?
I haven't really dabbled that much in racing games. Racing games have never been anything that I've been particularly that fond of. I did play GT 1 and 2 back in the old PlayStation 1 days. But since then, I think I've known a lot of people who are really big like racing fans and so on. But for me in particular, no, it's not been one that I've been massively fussed by. But I do appreciate the importance, first of all, of like the GT franchise to like the success of racing games in general. Like, I think racing sims wouldn't be racing sims without Gran Turismo. I think it sort of set the benchmark, really. And, you know, they are beautiful games, aren't they? Let's be honest.
Massive tech showcases.
Yeah.
And
I'm basically in the same boat as you, Tom, where I've never really been attracted to racing games outside Mario Kart. But I've always appreciated them from a distance. It's just, particularly just not a genre game that's ever overly appealed to me.
Yeah.
So
I think the biggest thing that we can't dismiss is, one, the technical prowess it shows off.
Oh,
I think
God, yeah.
that's
They're
amazing.
beautiful. Often the best graphics on the platform.
And again, I think as the lines get blurred between graphics, that's why it kind of becomes less important, because they can showcase the graphic fidelity in almost every genre now. Whereas back in the day, I think cars were the really straight like go-to showcase, because it's easier to render a static car than it is a human being. So I think as graphics have got better now, like humans and the interaction there, and animals are looking a lot more lifelike, it's easier to kind of showcase that. But yeah, I have
it's the environment as well. I was going whizzing past here to keep it at such a high detail to make it look good. That must be very difficult to do.
Oh yeah, but I think Gran Turismo 3 or A-Spec is still the highest selling exclusive on PS3 today. I think it was like 7 million or something. So it's a big franchise for Sony, and again, there's lots of people around the world who still love these games. I have very fond memories of the introduction. I think Gran Turismo 2 on the PlayStation with, I think it was a feeder song. That was like the intro trailer. It might have been just today, actually. I'm not sure. But yeah, very nostalgic memories wash over when I come to that. And it's, again, the next entry will again be a graphical powerhouse, and no doubt it'll sell millions and millions of units.
Every platform needs a solid racing sim.
Yeah, 100%. Moving on, number 19. I think I'm the only one who's played this game. Concrete Genie. The genie that comes around.
I remember you saying some really good things about it, though.
It's great. It's a great little game. Palate cleanser. You'll finish it in a weekend. Little kid being bullied. His local town that's by the dockside has kind of been all the life's been sucked out due to like industrial kind of damage, I guess, and it's kind of ruined the area. Everyone's moved away from the town. There's only a few people who hang out, and you basically come across this kind of like genie. And he imbues your art book and your paintbrush with powers.
With
and you
concrete.
Can paint neon graffiti and it comes to life.
Your paintbrush is quite heavy. Like,
Yeah. And you go around this little quaint little town and you basically bring it back to life with colour and interactive characters. And it just tell a really good story about like why bullying's bad and growing up with like... Yeah, just a creative outlook on life, I suppose. And it's very whimsical. It was a nice palate cleanser, I think, for me between... What was I playing? That was probably Days Gone, which is a massive game, and whatever else came out later that year. So, massively loved it. Definitely check it out. You could probably pick it up for less than 20 quid now, I'd say, easily. Nice little long weekend game. Highly recommended.
Okay.
In at number 18, we've got Yakuza 6. I have no bearing for any Yakuza title. I've never played one, although I see them highly recommended. Either of you two, Yakuza 6?
I've no experience.
Yeah, it's your Japanese GTA. Like I don't know how else to word it really. It's an action RPG. It's very much it's obviously it's got that same sort of like tongue-in-cheek element a little bit as well. Not so much as the more recent title that's come out, which is Yakuza Like a Dragon, I think it is, which is very sort of like tongue-in-cheek. But no, this is really the sort of like Japanese sort of take on the GTA sort of franchise, really. Very action heavy, but takes itself a little bit seriously as well at the same time.
There's loads of them, right? I feel like there's about 10 entries into this franchise, and I don't feel like I can't visualize them anywhere being marketed on store shelves. So whether we're just not the market over here in the UK to focus that kind of commercial money on, but I've only feel like the last 2 years they've really started to become like a thing in my peripheral vision of games almost.
Yeah, for me, it's one of them sort of like franchises. So I don't think I'd go out my way to play one, but if like one dropped on like PlayStation Pro, I'd probably jump in. I might find myself falling in love with the franchise. It's happened before. You know, it's just not quite on your radar enough for you to pay that much attention, but I know how well respected it is. So.
It'd be kind of the kind of thing if it dropped as a Stadia Pro game, you'd play it and really enjoy it. But then would you go out and buy another entry? Yeah, so interesting one. Kind of following on from that vibe, then we've got number 17, Street Fighter 5. I haven't played Street Fighter in years. Like, you're talking way back when to early PlayStation.
Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, probably Street Fighter 2, I think.
I must admit, I was very much into my fighting games, and then I was very much not into them, and picked up Street Fighter 5. Had a lot of friends who played it. Again, great. It was sort of around like the Street Fighter 4/5 sort of reimagining of the visuals of it, giving it that sort of like slightly cartoony elements of it, isn't it now? But you know, I mean, fighting games speak for themselves. It is the definition of the fighting genre. Like that came prior to Mortal Kombat. It's a huge title that like millions of people around the world compete in esports, and it speaks for itself, doesn't it? It's Street Fighter at the end of the day. Everyone knows it when you talk about video games. It's just one of those quintessential names. Yeah.
Street Fighter, terms of esports, predated esports. Basically, it's kind of the origin of the esports. Like the early days of the arcade of people fighting each other on the cabinet.
Yeah, put your 50p down, winner stays on, kind of thing. Yeah, I think I have closer memories of it being in our local arcade than I do actually on a console with the joystick and the buttons. Yeah. Very, very classic. And it's one that's just found almost like, I think fighting game genre in general has found quite a new life in the last 5 to 6 years with like Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat. I think the Warner Brothers team.
The rise of esports. It's like, I think it's the rise of esports and like,
But even like your Batman, why can't I think of the name for it? The
Injustice,
the Gods Among Us. Yeah, I think that branching off, and then you've got Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. I feel like Tekken as well. Like everything just seems to have had like a sudden resurgence. Soul Calibur we saw come back. Yeah, it's just like everywhere you look, there's like a new fighting game. It's great. Even like Brawlhalla from Ubisoft. Like even like down to your pixel levels, it's really good.
I think it was one of them as a genre. It was like a massive genre in gaming, and it kind of disappeared for a while as other genres took the precedence, and then it's refound its home.
Yeah, well, I suppose as gaming as a large as well. I mean, we've seen the same with horror. How kind of horror was huge when we were kids, and then it kind of just went quiet for like a decade, and now it's just seeing a resurgence.
Horror got turned into action. Survival horror got turned into action horror. But then people are like, no, we want survival horror back, please.
Yeah, like good enough. And with graphic fidelity now as well, the jump scares and stuff. And then you've got VR comes into it, and like 3D audio, and there's so many ways of just making scary stuff scary again. So yeah, it's great to see all genres doing well, and new ones pop up all over the place. Sticking with traditional genres though, in at number 16 we've got from Sucker Punch Studios, Infamous Second Son, the third entry in the series. We had 1 and 2 on PS3, and then they kind of launched the PS4. It was supposed to be one of the launch window games, so I think it got pushed back a little bit later. In at number 16, either of you two played this one?
Yes, I did. It was one of the very early PlayStation Plus games, if I remember, in the PS4 life cycle as well.
I think it wasn't. I think it must have been like second year or something, because I got it on PlayStation Plus, and it was one of the first games I ever platinumed. It was a fantastic game.
Yeah, I love me a bit of Infamous. I've got the platinum for this one, and the DLC, which was kind of extended DLC's First Light, which took a character from the main game and gave them the whole branching path story and such. And Sucker Punch make fantastic games, and having superpowers, but in like the graphic fidelity they can offer display. It's wonderful. Jumping around Seattle and just basically destroying shit with, I can't remember the powers, Richie. There's like one way you can control
like
rocks.
Concrete?
You can like pull concrete out of the ground. There's
like fire initially or something?
Smoke, because you could go in smoke stacks and pop out the roof. That's how you got from ground level to the rooftops, which was super, like the traversal element. And there was one way electric as well, I think.
It took a superhero power system and incorporated so well into the world and made sense. You never really felt overpowered unless the game wanted you to. So it just worked so incredibly well. It was one of them. As soon as I finished the story, I went back immediately and played through the evil playthrough to get that platinum.
Yeah, nice. It's really good. If you've not checked it out again, it's one of those where it stands the test of time. Super cheap, and if you're new to the platform now, definitely recommend it. I'm surprised we haven't seen another one yet. It's been probably 7 years. 6 years, something at that point. It's been a long time.
6 years at least. It was released in 2014,
which is crazy. It's 6 years ago now. But and again, we know Sucker Punch have moved on to new IP since then. So hopefully the studio is big enough to do two things at once. Because I'd love to see another Infamous game or a remaster of the first two. That'd be nice to see as well. But Infamous Second Son coming in at number 15. I'm a bit dubious about this one, gentlemen, because it's a remaster of obviously the best game on PlayStation 3, but we don't count this one, right?
I want to count this because I played it on PS4, but should we skip it?
Because if you put it in here, does it not by default become one of the best, if not the best game on this platform?
Well, it kind of straddled. It's one of them games that straddled the generations.
Yeah, it came out in June. Of the PlayStation launch, so it was only out for a few months, but it was very much the send-off to PS3, and I think them up-resing it and stuff for PS4 doesn't mean it gets to jump into this list for me, personally. It's my favourite game on the PS3, but that doesn't by default win it on here just because it's a port, so... How about you, Tom?
I didn't actually play on PS3. My first experience of The Last of Us was the remastered, so it was my first jumping into the franchise.
What a way to start!
Yeah. No, definitely. But I loved it. You know, I get it. The storytelling is incredible. Like this is what Naughty Dog do.
Yeah.
Fantastic story. Characters. I was blown away by it. I'm struggling to say whether I count it though, but it is. It's again. It's one of these PlayStation IPs.
How about this? We don't count it, but we all agree it's a masterpiece.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Undoubtedly, and many people will probably experience it for the first time. And they've just had the HBO TV series signed off as well, so you're going to see much more of that world coming soon. But yeah, in at number 14, we've got Tearaway Unfolded. Now, looking at you two gentlemen, I feel like you've not played this game, just in this assumption.
No.
I played Tearaway when it was on PlayStation Vita, and it was one of the exclusives that went to Vita, and it utilizes everything about the Vita: the touchpad, the microphone, the touch screen on the front, the shaking gyroscopes inside. Beautiful, stunning little game
to show off the hardware.
100%.
You know, usually at the start of generation, something comes like, "Oh, here's a game that shows the hardware." Infamous did that with the PS4 because it showed like you turn on the side to spray paint and stuff, and using the touchpad.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. It was like, think of it like a little paper. Like you're in a world made of like paper mache essentially. And you have your little character, and you run around, and you collect little paper shards and everything. But the way it interacted with the Vita was, so like to do certain platforming, you put your finger on the back of the Vita, and a finger would pop up on screen, and you would push the platform up to jump onto. So if you took your finger off the back of the Vita, the platform would drop, but you would actually see a human finger come into the console. It's just absolutely ingenious. You'd roll your finger across the touchscreen to roll a bit of cardboard out to make a bridge for them to walk across, and it was just it was an absolute delight. And unfortunately, on the Vita, it didn't find a massive audience, so they repackaged it for PS4 with the touchpad on the controller. And I just think it was one of them which it's a sign of its, like you said, Richie, showcase of its features in its time, but it's never going to reach a mass audience just due down to the Vita sales, and then also it's aimed at a younger audience, let's face it, but fun all the same, and you can pick it up on Amazon for 14 quid, so fill your boots. In at number 13, we've got Ratchet and Clank, the remaster of the PS2 classic. It came out the same time as the movie, if you remember. They made a movie of this that no one remembers or went to see at the cinema. But the game, thankfully, does hold up. Have either of you two played this one, Ratchet and Clank?
I have to admit, of all the sort of like platformer quintessential iconic games from the PlayStation era, Ratchet and Clank is the only franchise I've not actually touched.
Wow.
And like I've gone as far as playing like, you know, the Jack and Daxter games and so on, which is an even further throwback, I would probably say. But no, I never got around to Ratchet and Clank, so I feel quite bad that this is the franchise that they're sort of like sticking to with their guns and pushing forward for next gen. Because it's the kind of thing that I would love to play, but I just never did.
Richard?
And I even played Knack.
Oh, yeah.
I got into the the PS4 ecosystem a couple of years later. I was kind of playing catch up on some of the greatest titles that were ported from the PS3 over, and all the new titles coming up from the PS4. So this is one that kind of fell by the wayside because of things like Last of Us, like the Uncharted collection.
Yeah, my list of recommendations I handed over to you was like Uncharted collection. That's 3
Infamous.
games. then the new one. Then The Last of Us, and yeah, great playing.
I played Uncharted 1, 2, 3, Last of Us, and then straight into 4. That was awesome, like 2 months.
Yeah, but it's certainly looking forward into what you're saying there, Tom. Like, they're definitely sticking to their guns. Obviously, Sony acquired Insomniacs Games last year for an eye-watering amount of money. They make Ratchet and Clank alongside Resistance Fall of Man franchise, and then you've also got Spider-Man, which obviously is their other flagpole that they've got at the moment. In terms of Ratchet and Clank, though, I, like Tom, never played a Ratchet and Clank game all previous PlayStation generations. However, I did jump into this one because it came out at a really good price point. It was one of those, like, mid-tier game prices, so it wasn't full whack. Played it, loved it. It's very tongue-in-cheek, playing off the movie. It's essentially like a Pixar movie boiled down into a 3D platformer. It looks gorgeous, the comedy back and forth, the gameplay, the weapons are amazing. There's like a disco grenade, which basically makes all the bad guys dance, and it's so quirky and funny. It's honestly, it's well worth a good, like, long weekend, I would say, to play. And the sequel, like you said, doubling down, it seems to be one of their go-to mascot characters that Sony are adding to this portfolio. Now they don't have Crash and Spyro. It's one of their go-to, I think, ones for that family-friendly audience.
It's a guaranteed big hit for the younger audience.
Mm-hmm. But another one. Highly recommend it, and I'm looking forward to the sequel. Next up, Richie, you mentioned pre-show, post-show, post-show, whatever you'd class that little time between podcasts is. You've not played this one yet, but Uncharted The Lost Legacy is in at number 12. Tom, I'll throw it over to you. Have you played Uncharted Lost Legacy?
I still haven't really played the
okay.
Uncharted.
I'm just very cautious of me just gushing about all the games that I've played in Platinum.
No. There's plenty in this list that I have played, but I am still ashamed to say that I have not played the Uncharted franchise. I have all of them. I have all of them, but I haven't played any of them.
Wow,
it's terrible.
So Uncharted.
I just haven't played this one. It's the only one I haven't played.
Oh, and it's well worth it, gentlemen. You'll be well worth. Very happy when you get around to it. Obviously, 2 female protagonists. We have Chloe Fraser from Uncharted 2 and onwards. We've got Nadine Ross as well, who makes an appearance in Uncharted 4 as head of the bad guys organization. And they go on their own adventure. They learn a lot about Indian heritage and culture, take you to a different part of the world, explore. Typical Naughty Dog linear progression. Some characters come back. There's some quips. There's lots of references to the wider Uncharted world. And it's an absolute delight. This is one of the ones my wife really loves as well. I don't know whether it's just female led. It gives you that more incentive to feel like you are playing as the person. But just like Tomb Raider, it doesn't really matter who you play as because the gameplay is stunning. More amazing action, adventure, vehicles involved, epic AAA blockbuster movie cutscenes, witty dialogue, amazing character development, and by the end of it you ended up loving everyone just like you do in the main franchise as well.
I know I'm going to love it when I finally get around to playing it.
Yeah, you really are. There's some great things, and obviously they throw in a couple of extra bits into the mix because it is the last Uncharted game we've had to date. We haven't had another one from Naughty Dog yet, and the rumour is that the new San Diego studio that's popping up is going to be taking on the mantle from Naughty Dog as they move on towards Last of Us and other work. Highly recommend this one. Very, very top rated exclusive games. I would recommend.
I wonder if this game was a way of testing out a few characters to potentially lead the franchise going forward.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be DLC for Uncharted 4, and then typical Naughty Dog fashion, it just became that big and story-driven that they wanted to explore it more, and I'm glad they did, because personally I would take every other year a little like Uncharted, almost like a side mission, a side adventure somewhere. It doesn't need to be Nathan Drake and the rest of them. It can very much be, I'd do an adventure with a younger Sully. I'd do an adventure with, spoilers, his daughter from number 4. I'd do an adventure with loads of them, so look forward to that. Just give me more. It's the gameplay, to be fair. It's like the story and the characters are great, but it's just that Indiana Jones adventure, which the child inside me just loves it.
One thing the Uncharted series does is it changes up the gameplay periodically, so you don't get fatigued by doing the same thing over and over and over again.
And they look beautiful, absolutely stunning. Like some of the places you visit in Lost Legacy with like India and stuff, and you see like giant statues of Ganesh and everything, and it's just it looks stunning, gorgeous. I'll throw it over to you for this one, Richie, because I know you've played this one. This is in at number 11. The remake from Bluepoint Studios, who I don't know why Sony haven't bought yet, because they are hitting it out the park with obviously Demon's Souls, just dropped on PS5, and then Shadow of the Colossus.
Masters of the remake.
Masters of the remake. I guarantee you they're working on like a Metal Gear Solid or something behind, like remake behind the scenes.
Just to be clear here as well. This is a game that I have played a lot of, and I do not count it because it is a PS2 remake.
Oh, you don't count it, even though it's a complete...
It's an incredible game.
It's a ground-up remake. It's not like a remaster. It's not like a slap of paint on it. They rebuilt the game.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, Richie,
I think this is a love or hate game. Either you're not, because there's only a handful of enemies in the entire game, but every single one is just like an epic set piece that might take you like an hour to take down. The atmosphere is phenomenal. The world building is incredible, despite there being very little things like dialogue. It's all about exploring the world. And we haven't actually said the name of the title yet.
Shadow of the Colossus.
I'm just halfway through gushing about it. No one knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's a phenomenal. I didn't play the PS2 one, and I know how much it's beloved it is, so I really wanted to try it. And yeah, it's a fantastic game.
Tom?
Tom?
I would echo that. It's
You would echo that.
Yes, I would echo
Hey.
that. It's very it's very unique in its play style, and the fact that it creates essentially almost like the things you are trying to take down are the levels. Like they literally become the environments that you are in.
Yeah,
they're that big. The Colossus
I've
are
never
literally
been
that big.
felt so sad and so guilty at taking down a giant monster creature. It just, as the game goes on, it like you kind of start questioning your actions, and it's like,
why
am I doing the right thing here?
Yeah, this is what I've had without playing it. This is what I like, the almost like Colossus remorse that you get when you take one down, because you're doing it for your partner or your wife or someone on you to like heal them or something, and you have to take these down to save her almost. So it's kind of like a choice that you have to make but you don't want to make. And it's one that's on my pile of shame. I've not played it, believe it or not, so it's in there.
Okay.
It's in there. Quickly counting down then onto the top 10 games, we've got surprisingly lowly ranked in my opinion, but in at number 10, following on from Sucker Punch, Ghost of Tsushima. Arguably, I know we're going to discuss it in another episode as well, definitely for our Christmas New Year podcast where we take a short break, but we don't take a break because we just record it in advance and then we post it up later on. But our Game of the Year discussion, Ghost of Tsushima 100% is in my Game of the Year discussion. It's phenomenal.
At the time of recording, it literally is in the Game of the Year discussion.
Yeah, it is in this current global Game of the Year. But Jin Sakai, Tsushima Island, never really played like a Japanese samurai game. It's gorgeous, it's stunning, the gameplay is tight. The free multiplayer they've just added on, Ghost of Tsushima Legends, is amazing. It's arguably probably one of the best multiplayer games I've played in a long, long time. So much fun.
A multiplayer spin-off to a single-player title, which are usually fairly shoddy. This is fantastic.
Yeah, free and fantastic. And I honestly want more of it. Like I've held back on New Game Plus to play it on my PS5 because I've been told it looks even better, which if that's even possible. But if you're like a fan of like game design when it comes to landscapes and variety, like some of the sets in this with the cherry blossom falling down and the autumn leaves and the sun-baked horizons, it's chef's kiss gorgeous. If you've got a 4K TV, the amount of times I've used photo mode in this game is out of this world. But yeah, nothing but praise for this game. Amazing.
At work, my PC at work, I actually have like a screen cap of like Ghost of Tsushima as my desktop background.
Oh, it's so good. It's actually made it difficult for me to jump in and enjoy Valhalla a bit more because the gameplay is so tight, and again, a samurai is so precise, and the game absolutely nails it in terms of like the blocking techniques, the quick moves, and just the different stances that samurai hold. And then going into Valhalla, which is just a Viking basically thrashing at everything and throwing his weight around with big axes and shields.
Valhalla's a bit more forgiving.
Yeah, there was definitely a transitional phase to get into those Viking boots, certainly. But I can gush about this all afternoon. Tom, have you checked this one out yet, or is it on your radar? Because you're a big fan of Sekiro, so I'm surprised.
I know it's one of these games that it really appeals to me, but because of my involvement in Stadia lately and my lack of time, I've really sort of gone into this sort of console malaise where I don't really play anything on console anymore. I'm sort of like very heavily into cloud gaming, and I'm worried. Like I want to, but again, there's so many things I want to play. I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to play it, though. I really just hope I would have a way of experiencing it, but I don't think I'm going to. So, I know.
I would say if you ever get your hands on a PS5, I would say obviously the PS5 titles, but if you're going to look back into that PS4 catalog and think what would showcase the fidelity and speed and such and gorgeousness, I'd definitely recommend this one.
You know what? Give it a year, and it'll probably drop down to about £30 or under on Amazon, and just pick it up. You've got your PS4.
What you need, Tom, is a teacher's summer holiday to just enjoy. That's what you need. But that's a long ways off. What not is a long ways off is the end of this post show. So let's keep going, gentlemen. In at number 9, Detroit Become Human. Quickly throw it over to you two. Did either of you play this?
No.
I always intended to, but I never got around. Other things got in the way.
Again, it's
another one.
This is the problem with
so many games.
This is the problem, particularly with PlayStation, with Sony, is that they have too much good stuff. Like I'm trying hard not to be biased here, but the truth is I am. And I just try. There's just too much good IP. That you
There's always going to be
cannot-
through the cracks.
Yeah, unless you literally do nothing else with your life, I do not understand how you can fit everything in, Chris.
I honestly think the quality of the Sony IPs is why I've stopped playing games like FIFA and Call of Duty. As much as those annualized franchises, I don't have time for in my life. I think that's why I'm not that interested in Fallout titles, like these big, massive RPGs, like games as a service. Destiny and stuff, that's why I never really got involved. Division, I enjoyed Division, but I stopped playing it because every time Sony come out and go, hey guys, we've got this first party exclusive, it's always stellar. It's almost got like that Nintendo seal of approval, that little gold sticker you used to get on Nintendo games where you knew it was great.
That's kind of why I moved away from like Avengers fairly quickly, because I don't think the game was good enough to keep my attention when there's so much other better stuff out there that I haven't played.
And Detroit Become Human it's a great game. It tells a really good story about segregation, cyborgs in the future, cybernetics, very Blade Runner-esque, but in that style of Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, because obviously it's from Quantic Dream as well, who now doesn't seem like they're going to partnership with Sony and Xbox necessarily. They've gone a bit independent. I think they were bought out by someone, if I recall, late last year. So we may not see the games on the console again, but I doubt it because it's like 120 million of them in the wild and they'd be foolish not to. But it just means there's more opportunity for them to come to titles like Stadia and stuff. But Detroit Become Human, really good game, really good narrative decisions, branching paths, that kind of experience. And I really enjoyed it. It looks great. Persona 5, I haven't touched it, I haven't played it.
This is one where I think Richie and I could talk for hours on this one.
All right, give us your snapshots.
I'm going to very, very keep this short because every year I have a period between Christmas and New Year's where I don't have a lot on, and this is where I tend to like to have a big, meaty game to sink my teeth into. This year is going to be probably Cyberpunk. Last year was Persona 5, and I think I clocked in over 140 hours. I think that if you're playing that much time in one game, it just kind of shows you how much I fell in love with that game. I had never played a Persona game before. I've played quite a lot of different JRPGs, but this was quite unique. I think Persona is very different to any other JRPG out there, and it's phenomenal. Wow. Fell in love with all the characters, fell in love with the gameplay. It's just,
That's interesting.
I'm impressed that was your first experience of it, because I've been playing the Persona games since Persona 3, and I have to say, this is the best of them. Like, it's the best of any of them. The thing about Persona 5 is there is so much attention to detail to the element of like the to immerse you in the playstyle, that like everything down to just like the UI itself is just crisp. It's just so nice that it just stands out.
It's not very often I'll pick up a game and then I'll start playing and go look at the clock and go, I started playing this about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's now 2 a.m. Oops.
Yeah. Just gone like that. Oops. I've never played one before either. The biggest one that always got me was everyone raved about Persona 4 Golden on the Vita and said it was the best. It's the best PlayStation Vita game by a lot of outlets, and people say that. And they said again about the time and the hours and such, and then obviously 5 is again amazingly revered, and I think it's actually part of the PlayStation Plus collection for PS5. So technically, I do own this. Sorry,
is it the Royal version? There is Royale, the version where even more content.
Yeah, I think that was the Vita version. Did they port it over and call it Golden Royale?
No, so if you're talking Persona 4, there was a Persona 4 Golden. Every Persona game, they release an extra one which has like more content to it. So for Persona 5, it's Persona 5
it's like the game
Royal.
Of the year, like all the DLC and stuff.
Yeah, essentially, but they even they extend the story as
even
well.
More so.
Like even more so.
Cause just what
like
you
need a whole new character arcs and stuff. Is like,
Yeah, I like how the plus points on the website are a classic RPG, looks amazing, masses of depth.
It is like every single character you meet in that game feels like an actual character. It doesn't feel like just a random NPC. So it's absolutely phenomenal game. I don't think it would be for you though, Chris, because you're not usually into your turn-based stuff.
Yeah, I'm not.
And it's very anime.
Okay. Interesting.
which worked very well for me and Tom.
Yeah, I think again it's the time sink that puts me off. Like something so big, it's like if I can't commit to finishing it, I'm not a big fan of starting games that I know I'll not finish.
It's a game I got to try out PS Now because I was kind of interested in it because I knew it was going to be a massive time sink. I was like, and it was on like my Amazon watch list for a while. And then when I tried out PS Now and it was there when this is the game I'm going to try, and I fell in love with it.
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
In the interest of JRPG length, let's move it on to number 7, which again is another title that finally came out, long in development. Rich, I think you might have played this one as well. I don't know about you, Tom. Yeah. The Last Guardian. So it began its life on PS3, and obviously it finally got finished in time for PS4. I've not played this again. It's a prequel to Shadow of the Colossus, so probably Richie, I'll throw it over to you for this one.
Is it a prequel to Shadow of the Colossus?
It's what it says on the website in front of me.
All right. It's made by Team Ico. It's a kind of very cerebral, very atmospheric game. This one's a lot more linear than like Shadow of the Colossus, and it's all about like the kind of AI and the bond you form with the I can't remember the weird dog cat bird thing.
Trico, isn't it?
Trico, yeah.
Trico, yeah. And it's like, so it's about that relationship and like
bear dog, not cat dog.
So, yeah, if you're kind of interested in that sort of like atmospheric world building, like and helping you and your companion working together to solve puzzles, and it's definitely worth playing.
Yeah, and this was, I'm right in thinking this was showcased at the PS3 launch, and then it didn't come out. There was like a long going joke saying like.
And it was a bit buggy when it came out as well.
Yeah, I remember Trico apparently not being as responsive as the commands you were giving him to help you through puzzles. But
well, that's it. Trico feels like a real creature where sometimes it will just ignore you and go off and do something else.
any pet owners out there, you know what that's like, 100%. Tom, did you have a chance to play Last Guardian at all, or is this one that's just...
I didn't. Again, it was one of these titles that I'm very much aware of, and it sort of fell on the wayside with that like Duke Nukem Forever sort of vibe, the Half-Life, the Half-Life 3 sort of joking. It'll never come out. It came out, I think it came out at the same time that a lot of other big games came out, so I think again I just didn't have the opportunity to get into it.
Put a pin in that one. Games that I haven't put a pin in though, in at number 6, Uncharted Thief's End, the culmination of Nathan Drake's story, 5 amazing titles. Shout out to Golden Abyss on the PlayStation Vita. That is, in my opinion, better than the first Uncharted game. And a lot of people won't know that because they haven't got a Vita or played it on the Vita. But yeah, amazing game, Uncharted Golden Abyss. But Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, again, adds all those stories together, brings in the whole family. Sully, Drake, even Drake's brother, I should say, Sam is in there as well. Returning cast of characters, typical Naughty Dog progression, amazing story, narrative driven through and through. On the hunt for pirate treasure. How much more adventurous can you get with pirate treasure, gentlemen? It's every child's dream. And playing it out in stunning visuals with Naughty Dog, Nolan North, and Troy Baker lending their voices and talents and stuff. You love to see it. One of my favourite games of all time, and it's one of those, much like the Uncharted games, I go back to almost like on a yearly basis if I can, because they are just like sitting down and watching the favourite movie for me. They're great. I love to play them, and I can get through them laser fast right now. Super good.
It's a perfect way to end the story of Nathan Drake as well.
It really is. And
Don't tell me that. I've not even played the first one.
Oh. Well, that's the first one. Surprisingly, is the perfect way to start his story. So
yeah, pick up the collection, pick up this, and take a week off work, Tom, and your mind will be blown. Mind will be blown. Amazing. Probably my favourite franchise, I reckon, of all time. In at number 5, we've got Bloodborne. From Software game. This is definitely your wheelhouse, right, Tom? Currently recently free on PlayStation Plus. Entering the dark world full of terrors there. Quick take on this one then?
If you like a game that beats you bloody and leaves you feeling like you want to rip your PlayStation and throw it across the room, that's your game.
What a selling point.
I know, absolutely.
I mean, that's
it was from Software's first specifically made for PlayStation. It was never on any other platform. It's an incredible game. It's got a very Victorian London vibe to it. There's a lot of sort of like that Monster Hunter in sort of like the Van Helsing sort of vibe to it. Very much werewolves, vampires, blood demons, things that can literally rip you apart. Brilliant game though. If you've never played a From Software game before, that's a rough one to pick up.
I've always been tempted because I've got it on PlayStation Plus, but I didn't like Dark Souls. Like,
Okay.
I've tried to play Dark Souls about 8 times to try and get into it, and I just do not like that game.
Okay.
So I was like, when I was looking at Bloodborne, it's like, I know it's meant to be a bit more aggressive in the combat rather than defensive, but I never got the courage to actually sit down and play.
Yeah, I'd be very intrigued, but yeah, similar reasons for you, Richie. Out of Bloodborne and Sekiro, Tom, which would you recommend as someone who's not played any?
That's a tough one. I would probably say, now I've played both of them, I'd probably go and say Sekiro. I think Sekiro is, it's beautiful. Sekiro is the issue that Bloodborne has is that it's a very dark game. It's very, like, when people talk about London and think about England, they think, oh, it's very foggy, it's very grey, it's very wet. That's basically Bloodborne. It's very black and very red.
Soggy, wet, and dark.
Yeah. There's a lot of crawling around sewers and stuff, whereas with Sekiro, you're in, like, cherry blossom fields, open sides with mountains and sun and things like that.
I think setting-wise, Sekiro appeals more to me.
Yeah.
But I have got Tsushima, which is less painful.
Exactly.
It's still a bit painful, that game. It's not Ghost of Tsushima is not an easy game.
That's true. And speaking of wandering around in sewers, we'll jump over to NYC, the Big Apple itself, in at number 4, Insomniacs, Marvel's Spider-Man, arguably one of the greatest superhero games of all time, and I would 100% stand by that. It is, like, Spider-Man games have been good on PlayStation for a while. Let's not forget Activision owned this license, and they had Beanox working on The Amazing Spider-Man in line with Andrew Garfield's movies, and we all know how that turned out. But in terms of the games...
It's that kind of like 10 years ago when, like, movie tie-in stuff was just getting churned out as, like, all the things like Spider-Man games were just crap just because Activision wanted to keep the IP.
Hey, I think, again, if you go back, though, the Amazing Spider-Man games, they're not crap, I don't think. They're genuine, like, they are good. They're quality. The swinging around the city's fun, the missions, the characters, it's more comic-based, and they don't get as revered. And I think just taking a hiatus and then giving it with such a renowned studio, and then the rise of the MCU we've seen in the last decade, and the fact that the Marvel's Avenger games obviously not doing great at the moment as well, I think it just lends a lot to it. But let's face it, since Batman Arkham games launched, we've not really seen any other superheroes do great in the video game realm, and I think this is what I hope just kickstarts more of what I'd love to see.
Superhero games are probably very hard to make you feel like really powered up as a superhero, but without feeling like everything is trivial. Like, we complained about this during Avengers, where sometimes you'd be playing as Thor and you'd hit an enemy and they'd just take it like a boss. And it's like, no, you'd be dead.
You've just been smacked in the face with Mjolnir, you would be out cold, if not dead,
Where Spider-Man for the PS4, you did feel like Spider-Man, you did feel powerful, but there's times when you could get overwhelmed if you weren't careful. And it was fantastic, and it's nice to see them focus on building a really good game with the IP.
Yeah, absolutely amazing, spectacular, super wonderful Spider-Man. Traversing through New York, look gorgeous. Again, his graphics have got better. I think the city looks better than it ever has done. But yeah, the swinging mechanics, the tricks in the air, the fighting, and I think that very quick, rapid succession of all your gadgets and stuff coming to fruition in, like, a big, massive group fight, taking down one of Fisk's, like, gangs. Yeah, so enjoyable, so fun, and it makes me clamor for more. Like, when I'm swinging through Hell's Kitchen, I'm like, oh man, imagine if there was like a Daredevil side mission where I get to fight as Daredevil in this world, or then you swing through Jessica Jones' neck of the woods, or Luke Cage, or Avengers Tower, and you just think, why isn't there a world where all these games interlock? Looking at you, Square Enix, and making it all happen where you could jump between these types of characters and really just enjoy it. But I do think we're on the cusp of, like, again, everything being in Disney and Marvel seem to be, like, siphoning off titles to, like, specific developers now. And I think this is, like, Sony, you do that with Insomniac. Square Enix, you test that. I think we're looking at probably a decade of IP that they carefully license out and go, right, try something with this, try something with that. And I think we're on the cusp of a new superhero resurgence in the next 10 years or so, gents.
Yep.
Exciting times.
Quite possibly.
moving us on to future years, we've got Horizon Zero Dawn, which the sequel Horizon Forbidden West on the horizon. On the horizon. I could just go on a loop with those titles.
Yeah, you could.
Absolutely. What's more to say about this? Open world, dystopian future, I guess. Robot dinosaurs. That's all I need to say. That should just be on the box art. What do you need to know? Robot dinosaurs.
Do you want to fight robot dinosaurs with a bow and arrow in a sort of futuristic, sort of historical setting? If your answer is yes, play this game. If your answer is no, your answer is yes, play this game.
Yeah. Such a good story. Visuals, again, gorgeous landscapes that span desert, snow-capped mountains, deep thriving jungles, and all robot dinosaurs and creatures, crocodiles, hawks, everything, and hunt them all down, gather them gear, with a great narrative storyline as well. It's so good.
Those audio logs, the best I've ever seen in any game, because when you pick up an audio log, it reads it to you and you can move on with your life. You don't have to sit there and read paragraphs and paragraphs of text when you want to be playing the game. You can just listen.
You don't have to pick them up and then go and play them. It just does it. So you don't have like a flashing icon constantly telling you, oh, you need to check this out because it's in your log.
So it's one of them games where I got so immersed in the lore more than I usually did because I didn't have to sit there in a menu reading it. I could just move on. It's almost like narrating your audio logs is a smart idea.
Yeah. Like world building story aside, like just I've got such a good like place in my heart for this game. I can't, especially from Guerrilla, who made Killzone. Like what a turn of pace, gentlemen, from a shooter that's obviously it's popular, but it's not revered in many parts of the world. But then to switch over to an open world RPG like this and just smash it out of the park with a new protagonist who's very much one of the faces of PlayStation now. And then all these new creatures and it's so good.
I think you've summed up there, Chris. They took a new IP with a new protagonist, and that protagonist is now one of the faces of PlayStation.
Yeah.
On one title.
Yeah.
From a game, not from a developer not known for that sort of genre. They absolutely knocked this one out the park.
Mm-hmm. And then shout out to Herman Hulst, of course, the leader of Guerrilla Games, who's now been promoted to head of Sony Worldwide Interactive. So kudos there. He clearly did something right. I wonder why. But yeah, it's just like, just think of their teams going to sit down for the sequel and go like, what animals and dinosaurs can we bring to life? Like, it's just, like, I'm super excited for the next one. Looks great. Looks absolutely great. And then as we come up on the last two big titles as well, we make the switch over to Tom's favourite Norse mythology with the stellar title from Sony Santa Monica Studios, Cory Barlog and the team over there, God of War. Any more words need to be said? Boy.
God of War, no, absolutely. Like, you can't. There's nothing that is left unsaid about this game, is there really? Like
they took a franchise when the PS3 era just seemed a bit like, I'm a hard case of just like action, and turned it into arguably the best game of all time. Like, not just on like the combat or the lore, in a technical sense, the constant camera, it doesn't break, there's no cuts, like
story driven to the max.
Yeah,
it added so much into it, and someone who'd never played a God of War game before to jump on this and it'd be so story focused, and the combat and the Leviathan axe. Like we've just watched Chris Hemsworth as Thor for the last decade use Mjolnir and think, God, that must be amazing. And then we get God of War, we get to wield a Leviathan axe that recalls back to you with such satisfying sound dynamics and vision. It's so good.
A few little motors in one of these feels so good. A press of triangle, just
I can't wait for that feeling in the DualSense. Honestly, guys, like Astro's Playroom is something to behold with the DualSense. Give me a Leviathan axe and it's gonna be beautiful, like buttery smooth. Cannot wait. But not more to be said. Obviously, Game of the Year for pretty much everybody, I feel, for 2018, and I cannot wait for the sequel, which is supposed to be out in the next year. I think it'll be pushed back. I think it needs that time to breathe.
God of War themed PS5, but.
Do you know what? Let it get pushed back if it needs to be. That's fine. That's fine.
Take your time. We'll wait.
Let it breathe. And then wrapping up our top games of the last generation on PS4. This list is from Games Radar. It's not our own personal opinions. But in at number one is undoubtedly one of the stellar titles to come out of Sony and Naughty Dog once again. The Last of Us Part 2 continue Ellie and Joel's adventure. throughout. I think that where did they end up this time? Is it Seattle we end up at, Richie? You finished this one.
Yes,
Seattle,
I think so.
isn't it? Yeah, Seattle day 1, Seattle day 2, and 3. And yeah, again, everything we've said about Naughty Dog before: graphics, gameplay, storytelling, character development it
has it all.
It has it absolutely all. Some story making decisions obviously rock the boat a little bit with those who maybe have bought into certain characters and such, but and expected to play certain characters.
When
but
you have such a solid headcanon way, all these characters are what they're going to be, what they're going to do, then when the people who wrote the characters take them in a different direction, and then you start sending death threats, you're a dick. Like, you might not agree with the decisions they made, but they are. Just enjoy it. And I personally thought the story was fantastic.
Yeah, I did as well. I think again to tell
portrayal of any of the characters.
Yeah,
like,
and what I think it lends itself to really well is that everyone who spoke about The Last of Us, they talk about the story. They're not saying it's a game. They talk about the story and they talk about the characters. And it's like, if a video game's gone to that length that everyone talks about the characters and the decisions that happen. This is like a Pixar movie. No, it's not like a Pixar movie. But in terms of the emotions, how like Pixar gets you to buy into their characters, like any good director can do. Like the team, like Neil Druckmann, the team at Naughty Dog, they made you care so much about a character that you like vent your frustration when they don't do something you want. I think that's the great sign of a story, that it makes you care about someone fictional so much that you have like visual emotions to showcase from it. The gameplay is great. The bad guys, the clickers, the humans return, the factions, the combat, it all looks in like one stunning package. But
the story, the world, the characters are so strong. You got me to care about a survival horror game.
Yeah, it wasn't just everyone's gonna die, as per usual. Have you got? So you played Last of Us Part 1, Tom. Have you managed to get around to the sequel yet?
No, not at all. Again, I feel like I really let this generation down when it came to the big hitters at the end. And it's a shame, really, that it feels like those big hitting titles came at the very end of the lifespan. But I suppose it gives us good hope for the next gen, really, what is now the current gen. That bigger and better things are coming, because the story writing is just getting better and better and better. The quality of the characters and the animations is just getting better and better and better as well, and that level of immersion is just taking it to a whole new plane. It's a good time to be a gamer.
The biggest thing for me that I think we need to shout at Sony is taking a risk on all these single player IP in a time when the industry we seem to be pushing for persistent online multiplayer games full of microtransactions, and Sony went to the developers. Now you don't need to do that. Just write a good game.
Yeah, big credit.
And they sell. And it shows you, if you make a good game, they sell.
Yeah, and I think to summarize all that up as well, in a time when like we're making the jump over to current / next gen, whatever you refer to it as, with that spoilt personally on Sony first party, that when it comes to third party games, they need to do a lot to up their game. Because for me recently this year, playing Last of Us Part 2 and then Ghost of Tsushima, and then wrapping up the year playing Valhalla on my PS5, the animations and some of them characters and the body movements are so rough. It makes the game look like, don't get me wrong, Ubisoft nail an open world, looks stunning, fantastic, but when it comes to the cutscenes and the animations, some of the stuff I'm seeing in next gen Valhalla or current gen Valhalla compared to Naughty Dog stuff and Sucker Puncher stuff, it looks janky as shit. And like that's a testament to how good the first party quality is, God of War included in that. Amazing.
We're running the risk of dragging this conversation on even longer. I think part of the problem like developers might be facing at the moment is they're developing for 2 generations worth of platforms simultaneously.
Yeah, across 9 different platforms as well.
Yeah.
But and again, I don't like Valhalla still looks gorgeous, but it just showcases how good first party titles can be from a visual standpoint. Because
when you focus on one platform, it's a lot easier to optimize.
Yeah, 100%. And just to wrap things up then for me, a nice quick special shout out to The Order 1886.
Okay.
Oh God, yeah, that
great game. Yeah, came out in and around Infamous Second Son. Very underrated. You can finish it in about 6-7 hours. It's not that long. But I went back and touched on that a little bit earlier this year. And for a game that's like 6-7 year old, it looks better than half the stuff that's put out now. So that's just a throwback to that one there. Victorian London, you'd love it.
Yeah, not gonna lie, I'm outraged at the fact that 2 games that haven't been mentioned in this list are Death Stranding and also Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm actually outraged that neither of the 2 of those came up, but
well, blame
I'm
Games
not
Radar.
outraged by Death Stranding because even to this day I don't fully understand what that game's about.
Amazon
oh
Delivery
my
Driver.
god. Even then, I'm sorry, but take it even further back than that. Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, very early on in the PlayStation 4's life cycle, was plagued with issues as well there in terms of the story not getting finished, quite frankly.
Isn't that cross-platform, though?
Yeah, that might make it into next week's conversation.
Maybe. But hey, anywho.
But hey, what a generation for the players. Yeah.
Crash didn't make the list either.
Not exclusive.
Cross-platform. Lost his exclusive.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Next week, maybe next week, Richie. But yeah, guys, that's a generation of PlayStation. That is seven and a bit years. I've had a whale of time. I've had amazing. It's the first console I think I bought with my own money as well as an adult. Yep. It's crazy to think it was that long ago. I used to just steal them. Yeah, certainly. Amazing, love it, and that's why I'll keep going back. As much as I do love Stadia and stuff, and I've got Game Pass now, and I do have my Nintendo Switch. I hold the Sony library in such high regard. I will always get the next PlayStation unless something happens to Naughty Dog, Santa Monica, Sucker Punch, Guerrilla Games. Like, even though all the smaller teams in between, I'm always going to keep coming back for the quality single player storytells. As we get older, and I don't have time for online multiplayer, a chapter-based narrative beat it fits in perfectly with the way I like the game. So, shout out to you, Sony, for the players.
Shout out.
And we'll no doubt talk about the PS5 and future titles, because again, we haven't really touched about the cross-gen stuff. Miles Morales is technically this gen still, or last gen now, because it's on both, but that's all for another time. This has been nearly an hour's worth of us sharing our generational thoughts on the PlayStation 4. Thank you very much for tuning in to our Stadia post-show, of course. Covering all the generations as we wrap up the year. We wanted to focus on games as a wider spectrum. So thank you for stopping by. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
I've been Richie.
Don't forget to like the channel. Let us know what your favourite PlayStation games are in the comments down below. We'll see you next week for the podcast. Take care, everyone. Have a great week. Goodbye.
Bye.